Calm, focus, happiness.
Hey, Mindful Tribe, welcome to the show. I'm Bruce, and it's great to have you with us today. Last week, as you might remember, I talked about love because it was Valentine's Day. And then not only was it Valentine's Day, but 2 days later, it was my wife Darlene's birthday. So, always a really, really special time of year when we're celebrating her birthday. It just is one of those times where I feel so extra grateful to have her in my life. And today I was looking out the window at this beautiful, incredible day that we had here. I mean, I got back from my run and the sun, it was just so beautiful. It was shining so warmly, and yet it was like on and off. It was like a snowstorm, and the snow was coming down. There was lots of snow around, and it was just one of those absolutely incredibly beautiful days. And the sun was streaming in the window, and it reminded me of this. Well, it's a quote or a poem. It really is a very short little poem, and I've uh, had this as a favorite for a long time. It's been something that's been quite meaningful to me since the first time I heard it. And the first time I heard it was from Dr. Wayne Dyer. And so it was just really powerful when he first shared this poem, and it was in a publication that he created. It was the Tao Te Ching, and it was his interpretation of the Tao Te Ching. And here is the poem. Here's the poem that I want to share with you. And it goes like this. It's about unconditional love. And here it is, quote, even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And that is the poem, just like that. And I think what a metaphor to think of the sun and the earth really as humans, having love like that. And I just think, wow, every time I look at the sun, I can think about that. So I think it's very powerful. Now, I won't say much about the history behind this, except to say that if you look this up, you'll find out that it's credited to the poet Hafiz. And Hafiz was a 14th century Persian Sufi poet. And the thing about it is, though, there is some controversy. This was really written by Daniel Ladinsky. And when I say really written by him, what I mean is that if you look up the information about this, you'll find out that Daniel Ladinsky included this in his 1999 publication called The Gift. And he studied the poet Hafiz, and he put together thoughts and ideas based on his studies and what he actually thought that Hafiz would write, and what he kind of interpreted from Hafiz. But this wasn't a straight interpretation of a poem. So, I mean, you can look this up and read more of the thoughts behind this, but it still doesn't matter what the history is of this. It's just a really, I think, a really beautiful way to look at unconditional love. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And so I just wanted to talk about unconditional love today as a continuation about love, because I was talking about that last week. And, you might wonder, do you have this kind of love in your life? Do you love another person this way? Or maybe does that other person love you? Or maybe you think about it, in regards to a number of people. Well, here are some things to consider about unconditional love. One thing is, do you keep score in your relationship? Do you expect something in return for the love that you give to someone else? So those are some thoughts that you can think about. the fact that we're human, I think, means that it's just not realistic to have complete unconditional love 100% of the time. Sometimes it's natural to expect reciprocity. Sometimes we want something in return for the love we give, and sometimes we just need it, and it feels human to have that desire. But having said that, the more unconditional your love is, the more your relationships will thrive. That's what I think anyway. Loving someone unconditionally can bring you incredible happiness and incredible joy. And most experts agree that you'll feel a high level of satisfaction if you love someone else as unconditionally as you possibly can. And you see, the thing is this: when you expect people to give back for all the good things you've done, you'll probably find that people will start to avoid you. And you'll probably find that those relationships are not particularly strong. So let's talk more about unconditional love. A lot of people, I think, haven't even stopped to think about the difference between conditional love and unconditional love. I mean, that's certainly the case with me. I think for a long time, I don't think I really thought very deeply about this. But let's talk about it. What is unconditional love? Well, I would say to love unconditionally is to love without expecting anything in return. You might call this loving someone with no strings attached. So to love someone unconditionally, you have to be able to overlook their flaws and not expect any benefits from the relationship. At least not expect any benefits other than just being in the relationship and just having that person in your life. If you're a person who loves someone with all your heart and you only care about the happiness of that person, then it's very possible you might love them unconditionally. So here are some signs of unconditional love, what it looks like. So the first one is seeing beyond their flaws. If you love someone unconditionally, you find it extremely easy to forgive them for something that they've done that would have been a big deal if anyone else did it. When you love unconditionally, you don't give up on the person. You don't judge them. You don't decide, I don't want to have anything to do with this person, or I want to punish this person because of what they've done. You just see that person beyond their flaws and their mistakes. And that's point number one, seeing beyond their flaws. And point number two is that you will sacrifice for them. So even though it may be difficult, and it can be very difficult, I think, for some people, unconditional love means that you'll be willing to stand up for your partner or for your loved one, no matter what. You'll be ready to do something for that person, even if you lose something yourself. It takes a lot of courage to sacrifice something dear to you for a relationship, but that's exactly what you would be doing if you truly have unconditional love. Now, you might even take the blame for something or put your self-respect at risk just to see that the other person is happy. And this could be a whole debate on its own. But I think that this is true. I think that unconditional love can include all of these things. Now, the third point I want to make is that unconditional love can only be felt. Like sometimes it's very difficult to put all this into words. Unconditional love is not something that can be described easily. It's practically impossible to fully explain this kind of love in words. So the feeling you have for that person is difficult to communicate no matter how hard you try. And you just keep trying and you just keep trying. And the thing is, with unconditional love, you're vulnerable and honest about your feelings, and you feel like you understand each other even beyond words. When your love is unconditional, you're only concerned about giving and not about receiving. And your emotions and how you handle them are a powerful indicator of unconditional love. So even though you may feel anger, you may feel frustration or hurt, you continue to love the other person in the same way. So point number 4 is that you just find it very easy to love their imperfections. Even that person's imperfections seem just so lovable and so precious. And others may see their flaws, but to you, their flaws and their mistakes are just part of who they are. They're just part of that person's perfection. You find it easy to forgive them and accept whatever flaws they may have. And in spite of their imperfections, you're still able to open up your heart instead of protecting yourself. Because a lot of times in life, we want to protect ourselves. That's part of being human. But in this case, no matter what happens, you'll find yourself wanting to maintain the relationship and do whatever you can to keep it strong. Unconditional love is the most beautiful kind of love, but it isn't the only kind. There are a lot of people in the world that live their whole lives being in relationships where there are certain conditions associated with their love. The relationship may be with a close friend, it might be a sibling, it could be a baby or a child or a teenager, or it could be your spouse or your partner. The first step to having unconditional love is understanding the concept. And I hope I've helped you to understand the concept a little bit more here in this podcast. If you truly want to improve yourself in your relationships, just start to gradually implement some of the concepts I've described. By doing this, you'll move towards stronger and more meaningful relationships. And once you experience this change, you may want to keep building your relationships and make them stronger by applying more of the strategies and becoming even more determined to love unconditionally. If you always think of the other person before yourself, and you're always willing to support the other person and do whatever you can to understand their point of view, you'll be well on your way to loving unconditionally. Now, let me share that poem one more time for you. And here it is. Even after all this time, the sun never says to the earth, "You owe me." Look what happens with a love like that. It lights the whole sky. And like I said at the beginning, this is credited to the poet Hafiz, and that man is a Persian poet, but also Daniel Ladinsky, an American poet, included this in his 1999 publication called The Gift. So take what we've learned today to reach new heights of calm, focus, and happiness. Stay in the mode. Hey, Mindful Tribe, check out my Instagram. Just go to Bruce Langford on Instagram and you'll find me. And also my TikTok. I'm putting up more posts on TikTok. And one of them is this poem that I shared today. I was looking out the window, and like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I was looking out the window, enjoying the sun just streaming in, this beautiful, brilliant winter day. And I thought of this poem, as I often do when I see the sun shining in the window. And so that's what motivated me to share this episode. So thanks so much for joining me. And I just look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, Mindful Tribe. Bye now.